can address those. And Vanessa, you are unmuted if you would like to join the conversation.
I was just saying a whole bunch of things on mute. Thanks, Beth, for being our thanks for being our tech guru today for our first ever webinar. So this is exciting. I will mostly be quiet until we get started, but for people who are just jumping on, you do have a sort of a box on the right-hand side of your screen, and there is a little chat icon, and we will be using that chat function today to ask questions. So if you want to practice sending a little chat message while we wait for everybody to join, you can go ahead. And Beth, my screen just, aha, there it is, just checking. So we'll wait and get started in about 2 minutes, but thanks for everybody for joining the first ever Wisconsin Farm to School and Farm to ECE webinar as part of the new webinar series. We'll give it a few more minutes for everybody to hop on the line, then we'll get started. Good morning to everybody who is on the line. Welcome to the Making the Most of Farm to School Month webinar. This is the first webinar in the Wisconsin Farm to School and Farm to EC webinar series. We'll be hosting these webinars quarterly. Thank you all for joining us. The first note is that this webinar is being recorded today. The audio will be recorded, so you can re-listen to the audio as well as receive the slide deck. We are excited for everybody to be here with us today to talk about Farm to School Month. I feel like we have been talking about Farm to School Month for a long time, 24 days exactly, but Farm to School Month is not over. We still have plenty of more time, and there are ways to celebrate for the next 7 days, but also to carry all the great energy from this month forward. So let's just start with a little bit of a tech check before we get into introductions. This is Vanessa Harrell from the UW-Madison Center for Integrated Ag Systems, and I am talking, and hopefully you can hear me. If you can't hear me, go ahead and go into the chat function and just enter your message. We'll also be using this chat function throughout the webinar today for some audience polls. So if you want, you can just test out that chat function right now and say good morning or hello to everybody. Let the group know who you are and who is on the line. And if you can't hear me, that would be a good place to say, wait, we can't hear you before we go ahead and get started. But it looks like all the audio is working fine, and we will say that this is the first webinar that we have hosted, so thanks for your patience as we run across any technological hiccups. So we know that Farm to School and Farm to ECE folks are very generous and very forgiving and patient. So Beth, let's go ahead and move on to the first slide. While that's moving to the first slide, we'll just go ahead and do quick introductions as your facilitator. So as I said, I'm Vanessa Harrell at UW-Madison Center for Integrated Ag Systems, and I will be the facilitator you hear today, introducing all of our fantastic presenters and speakers. And Beth Hanna from Community Groundworks is also part of this webinar today, and she's running the technology. But Beth, can we put you on the spot to say hello to everybody for a second?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. It's fun to share this a little bit of a chilly, dreary day with all of our Farm to School friends who are able to be with us this morning. So thanks for making the time.
Thanks, Beth, and thank you, Beth, for running the technology today, the wizard behind the curtain. So what is this webinar today? What are we going to be talking about? Luckily, you're not going to be hearing me talk very much. We have some amazing folks out in the ground doing Farm to School and Farm to ECE across the state who will be chatting with you. We'll let folks introduce themselves, but we will be hearing from Plymouth School District, Lifecycle Kids Child Care and Enrichment Center, and Apple Blossom Orchard and Market. And really, our focus today is about Farm to School Month and making the most out of Farm to School Month for the rest of this month and also for the other 11 months of the year. And so after our fantastic presenters talk a bit about who they are, what they do, why they believe in Farm to School, and how they celebrate Farm to School Month, we'll share a little bit of background information on what Farm to School Month is, how it was created, and then some general resources about how you can make the most of the month and really help keep the momentum going. We will also have audience polls throughout the day, and we would really, really love to have your participation. So we'll flash some questions up on the screen, and then the way you will respond is through that little chat function. So once a question pops in, just go ahead and enter your questions in the chat box, and then everybody who's online can see them, and then we'll also try to read them for folks who are joining just by phone. Beth is letting me know there's a little bit of a delay in the slides. So Beth, can you go ahead and switch to the next slide? We do like these webinars to be as interactive as possible to keep you all engaged. And because of that, one thing that we are doing is we will have about 2 minutes of questions at the end of each guest speaker, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So you can now see there's our first audience poll question up. How are you celebrating Farm to School Month this year? So go ahead and type your answers into the chat box to get things going today. We'd love to hear from you. And as you are typing, we'll just kind of roll into our first presenter, but we do love hearing from you and hearing your engagement as we move through this webinar. So Karin, I'm going to hand it over to you because I know that you can introduce yourself so much better than we can introduce you. So we'll just set you out on your slides, and Karin Johnson, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy to be with you all. My name is Karen Johnson. I am the district chef for the Plymouth School District in Plymouth, Wisconsin. And we have been doing our best to promote farm to school, especially this year, this month. And the last couple of years, that has been one of our big focuses as a district, is to use local sources and local foods as much as we can, incorporating that into our curriculum as well. So they hired me about 5 years ago now as part of the mission in engaging our community into local foods. So the next slide there then that is our mission and vision for the Plymouth School District. So we are trying to, as we say, create a food literate local community, trying to make school food not only a conversation to have in the community, but to make sure that we're including our community in our food service program. Can everybody hear me okay? Hopefully.
Yep, we can hear you great.
Okay, great. So the next couple of slides are just some things that we have done this month, and I can explain a little bit about them. The one you're seeing now is our local microgreens, and those are actually grown in our greenhouse right here at school. We built a brand new greenhouse as a district at the high school. This is the second year it is operating now, and they are doing some great things up there as part of the curriculum, part of the classes. The kids are growing microgreens, so there are sunflower sprouts there and pea shoots. They only take a couple weeks to grow, so they can rotate those through fairly quickly in an aquaponic system. And then they just trim them. They can make a couple cuttings each growing session, and then they bring those down to our cafeteria. We mix. Sometimes we leave them just as they are too, as their own separate thing, so the kids can try them separately. And they've been very successful. The kids really, really like the sunflower sprouts. They've got a sweet, nutty flavor, and they found, the agriculture teacher there has found that these are very easy to grow. The kids can see results pretty quickly, so even if it's a shorter class, it's definitely something that they can do, and the production is quick on it. And they're able to get quite a few clippings in a small amount of space well. So even if you just have a small greenhouse and a small aquaponic system, this is, you know, an easy thing you can do. And it will work in soil as well too. You don't have to have the aquaponics, but that is one thing that they've been really successful at doing, and it's an easy way for us to add some really close farm to school, because it's our own farm here right at school. If we go to the next one. So the next one then is actually new this year, and we will hopefully be tasting this produce shortly. The hoop house that you saw there with the lettuce growing is actually growing currently in our garden right now. They haven't even picked it yet. That picture was taken just this week, and they are planning on cutting that in the next day or so. So hopefully we'll have all these new little salad greens. They're just mixed greens, red leaf, green leaf, to add to our salad, hopefully district-wide. A lot of times they're only able to grow what we can serve at the high school, but they have 3 of these hoop houses up in the garden right now, so that will hopefully give salad for our entire district for a day or two. And then we also, we got the chicken soup up there too. So the chicken soup is also from local produce. I've partnered with one of the farms here in Plymouth, Springdale Farms. They've been providing us with carrots and onions and celery this fall. So we also had some local chickens that were grown from our egg department here at school as part of curriculum a couple years back. So I still had some chicken stock in our freezer that we pulled out for this month to use the chicken stock along with the fresh produce and have some soup on one of these cold, rainy days. And along with the farms that we partnered with around here, they've also been able to get us some peppers and cucumbers and tomatoes and things like that for our salad bar. As many of you did, we also celebrated Apple Crunch Day So there's some pictures up now on your screen of our district celebrating Apple Crunch Day. The kids really got into it. Our apples were provided by an orchard right here in Plymouth also that we have partnered with for 3 years. And they have been selling us these apples for Apple Crunch Day for the last 3 years. So once you build a relationship, it's really great. He now knows to call me in about August and say, you know, how many bushels are you going to need for Apple Crunch Day this year? And which is really great because now I don't have to do as much searching anymore. I've actually got farms that are actually calling me, which makes the procurement a little bit easier because then I can just take all their messages that they've sent me and take a look and just call them back. So it's, once you get into it, it's a lot less legwork, but it was a little bit of work in the beginning, getting all these partnerships on board.
And we know, this is Vanessa, we know that the slides are a little bit slow to advance. And Karen, before we get into the audience asking you questions, can you tell us a little bit about what you do that's special during Farm to School Month and how you highlight your nutrition or Farm to School programs during Farm to School Month?
Sure. All this month, we have been using that Facebook page, especially which a lot of the pictures came from, to every time, you know, that I've been able to get a quick picture of anything that has had local produce on it. We've been saying, you know, here's what's our local farm to school today. You know, what do you think? And so showing people, you know, what it was when it came in, what it looked like after it was made, who it came from, where we purchased items from. We also were able this year to get quite a large number of volunteers to help out with Apple Crunch Day. Parents from the community, we've had some grandparents, just actually, there is a local nonprofit here called Nourish that we were able to get a couple of their volunteers that came and helped with Apple Crunch Day as well.
Excellent, Karen. Thank you. And just so everybody knows, the screenshots are from Karen's Facebook page that is run through the district, and she just does such a great job of promoting things through social media that I wanted everybody to see that bigger picture of what that really looks like and how you can share your farm to school programs or farm to ECE programs through social media. That's why you've got a little bit of the Facebook frame in there. And there are resources that are listed on this slide, and we know that they are not clickable for you now, but when you receive the PowerPoint after this presentation, you'll be able to click through to all of those links. So let's open it up to questions. If you have any questions for Karen, go ahead and type them into your chat box, and she has a couple more minutes to answer questions before she has to get back to food prep for lunch today. And we do have a question from Todd Hansen at Apple Blossom Farm, and that is, how do you manage food safety with microgreens? Sanitizer wash, question mark. So Karen, how do you handle food safety with those microgreens?
Hi, Todd. Actually, the greenhouse is all set up with a wash system. So we're very fortunate with our new greenhouse that they have a sanitizer wash system in a they have a 3-compartment sink wash system, so it gets washed 3 times. And so the kids learn how to do that, and they're all in charge of it. And so it gets brought down to us pre-washed, and then of course we kind of wash it again then too once it gets, because our greenhouse is a separate building. So of course, once it comes outside and through the building, then we, you know, do rinse it off again. But they have a wash system in place in the greenhouse. Did that answer your question?
That's a great question, and great. Todd says a very nice answer. That does sound like some great food safety. If anybody else has any questions for Karen right now, you can go ahead and enter them into the chat box. And at the end of our call today, we're hoping Karen can join back, but we will also try and take some questions through the phone as well at the end Q&A session as well. Any last questions for Karen right now? All right. Well, Karen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your beautiful pictures and the great work that you're doing. And we hope to be able to ask you more questions later. Okay. And next, we're going to hand it over to Karen at Lifecycle Kids. And while she is getting situated, we're going to share some of your Farm to School Month activities like serving local microgreens, applesauce sampling in schools, great apple crunching, and tasting apples. So it looks like people have been very active celebrating Farm to School Month so far. And with that, Karen, we will pass it over to you to introduce yourself and your program and your Farm to School Month celebration.
Thank you. So I am Karen. I am the owner and director of Lifecycle Kids Child Care and Enrichment Center. We are located in Mazomanie, Wisconsin, which is a small rural community about 30 miles west of Madison. We are a licensed child care center participating in the Young Star program. My background is not in early childhood. My background is actually in business and nutrition. And we started the daycare center back in July, so we are a very new facility. We've only been around for 4 years, and we have grown. We started with 12 children, and we now have 2 facilities, one with 45 children and the other one with 30 children in it. And we do all of our cooking on site at our main center, and then take food over to our school-age center for the after-school program when the children are there. One of my main focuses when I started the center was nutrition. I am a registered dietitian, and so nutrition is my passion. I'm also an avid cook, so that really runs sort of what my philosophy is at the center. On the slide that is up right now, one of our big ways that we participate in farm to early childhood is through having our own gardens. We are tore up, essentially, we dug up about 6 garden plots in the front of the building, and we plant different produce there every year. We really try to get the children involved in the process so they kind of feel more invested into it, and then we utilize it as a way to get them interested in eating more vegetables. We have done some fruits. We've grown, they've really wanted to grow melons. We don't have that much space, so growing larger crops that utilize that much space is a little challenging, but we do have the children help us decide what they want to plant. So every year we sit down and talk with them about what they would like to plant that year, and we try to get them to pick a new vegetable that we're going to plant. Lately, the older kids have all been about super hot peppers and wanting to plant super hot peppers, even though most of them don't eat super hot peppers, but we want them to get excited about it, so we still sort of let them pick what they want, and then I pick some other vegetables that we utilize in our meals. So during the summer, a lot of our vegetables come from our garden. This year, zucchini, cucumbers, and tomatoes we got a lot of tomatoes. Unfortunately, our cherry tomato plant didn't produce this year. Unlike if you go back to, I believe it's the first slide, you can see a big pile of tomatoes. That is from our previous year, where we would get about a bucket of tomatoes every week, and the kids would then have those for snack. Some of the activities we have done, we try to balance the program. There's the tomatoes. So that was what we harvested in one day, and pretty much every week we were getting tomatoes like that, where the kids would then eat them, which was awesome. Our kids have become huge lovers of cherry tomatoes. but one of the things we tried to promote the vegetables by encouraging in our menu using garden fresh vegetables, vegetables from our own garden. So we remind the children that they had a part in producing the food that they are eating. We also then work that into our curriculum and talk about where the food comes from, whether it's a fruit or a vegetable, what makes it a fruit or vegetable, and do samplings of different types of the same vegetable. For instance, we grew green beans and purple beans and had the children sample both, sample them raw, then we cooked them and had them give us ideas of what they thought it would taste like cooked versus raw. So tried to get them to really think about, come up with their own ideas of what the vegetables would be like. Would the food change colors? So with purple beans, if you haven't had them, when they're raw, they are purple. When they are cooked, they are green. And so they look just like a green bean when they are cooked. So we had them taste them to see if they would taste any different. We also did a tomato sampling where we had tomatoes that we picked from our plants, and then also had store-bought tomatoes, and had the children test the different tomatoes, see which one they liked better, and why they liked one better over one over the other. So we tried to get them involved in as many ways as possible. We let them do a lot of the harvesting and the watering. This year, we only had to water the garden like twice, which was kind of a disappointment because we didn't have as much work for the kids to do in the garden and to keep them as excited about it. But they still really got excited when they were able to harvest their own food, and they would tell their parents what they tried and what they ate. And that's always really exciting, especially when the parents ask how we were getting them to eat vegetables when they won't eat them at home. As you see up on the screen right now, we take field trips to the pumpkin patch to try to get another farm type experience. The lower picture is one of our felt boards that we utilize in the classroom. We tell stories with the felt board pieces with the younger children. We help teach them the animal sounds, the names of the animals, just to keep everything sort of tied back to this is what happens on a farm, and then talk about the food that then comes from a farm. The top picture is we have chickens at my own house, and those were our baby chicks that we brought in for the kids to see. When the chickens start producing more eggs, which will probably be next year, we'll be able to use them at the center, which will be nice that they can get fresh eggs as well. The other thing we did for promoting the Farm to School month is one of our themes. We're a theme-based center, so every week we do a different theme, and we did Farm to School as one of the weeks during the month, and utilized some of the materials from the Farm to School or Farm to Early Childhood pages with activities as well as coloring pages, and did samplings during the month. Apple Crunch, we unfortunately weren't able to sort of participate quite in the way that we would have liked. We did still do apples. Our kids are younger, so giving them a whole apple to eat is sort of a challenge. We did slices and had them all eat at lunchtime, which wasn't at noon because our children are all napping at that time. But we still participated and still tried to get the kids excited. It was a little more abstract for them at the younger age, so it didn't quite go over as well as much as it can when they go out to the garden and see the plants right there and harvest something and then have it on their plate at lunch or snack. But we'll probably still continue to do it, and you know, the older kids participated at their school, so they were able to then talk about it a little bit as well. So that was exciting. That is there anything else, Beth, that you want me to touch on? Otherwise, I'm open for questions.
This is a great time to take questions, and we will do chat box questions right now for Karen. So if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat box. And then at the end of the call today, we'll unmute all the phone lines so folks can ask questions by voice instead of through the chat box. So if you have any questions for Karen, you can go ahead and enter them in the chat box right now. And Karen, I do have a question for you. For an early care center or site that is thinking about doing the apple crunch, how would you, what recommendations would you give for adapting it to an early care center? I mean, it sounds like you did a great adaptation that worked for you. Do you have any other ideas or suggestions for folks who are trying to make it fit for a younger audience?
I would, next year we may try doing it with our afternoon snack instead of with lunch. For us, there's just so much going on with lunch and getting the kids sitting down and all the other food and getting them to stop to focus on it. But yeah, I would recommend doing something not at lunchtime and doing it more in the afternoon, and probably doing more build up. We didn't talk about it a lot in the classroom beforehand. I didn't get as much information to my staff as I should have, so the teachers weren't quite as on board with the idea and understanding of, so why are we doing this? So definitely I think doing more activities leading up to it would be helpful, and then doing something at a snack time instead of a lunchtime would be a better way to do it.
Great, and it looks like we have a question that has come in. Starting with a compliment, awesome work with your garden. Have you found that more students are planting gardens at home?
We are not, actually. The kids who talk about gardens were ones that had them even when we started. So we have not seen an increase in gardens at home. We have seen an increase in parents talking about different vegetables at home, which is great. But yeah, no gardens, which is really interesting for us because we are a pretty rural community. But even being rural, our kids are not. They don't have gardens at home. They aren't familiar with being in a garden or in the dirt.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. Well, Karen, thank you for sharing so much about your program and so many amazing stories and visual images. Clearly, these kids are getting really excellent nutrition and education at your site, and we'll keep you on the line for Q&A at the end of our time together. And we are going to pass it over to Todd to talk about the farm and grower perspective of farm to school early care and farm to school month. So Todd, take it away.
Yes, good morning, everybody. This is Todd Hansen with Apple Blossom Orchard and Market. And I grew up in Northern Illinois on 60 acres, about a mile outside of town, with a family business involved in the manufacturing of agricultural equipment. I went on to UW-Madison, got a degree in botany, been involved in entrepreneurial adventures most of my life. And a little over 4 years ago, made a lifestyle change with my family, moved outside of the big metropolis of Appleton, Wisconsin, 5 miles north to an orchard, and just started to use my entrepreneurial skills and try to link what we could do with needs, and I'll describe that a little bit in a little bit here. But so we grow not only apples, but other fruits and vegetables. We pick, we pack, and we distribute. We have a little retail store, you can see in the picture there on the left. But when we started our business, we jumped in August, and we jumped on a moving train. It was an overwhelming season, as we had lots and lots to learn as a family. But we found that schools were calling us. The farm to school wave had begun, and so there was a demand that was created there. And every time we got another call, it was, wow, there's a need. How do we meet that need? And so we grow some things. We're really good at growing apples, and I've gotten an opportunity to meet several other growers that are very, very good at growing what they can specialize in. And in many cases, they want to grow it and they want to pick it, and then they want to be done with it. And that's where we create this link between institutional buyers like schools and growers. And so we're not only an orchard, but we aggregate. So we're bringing in other product. In some cases, we're packing it, and we're putting it on an online ordering system and then delivering to schools and other institutions like hospitals and clinics. So mentioned to you, if you can advance the slide, that we worked hard to meet a need that we got pretty excited about. As a father of 3 children, realized the importance of nutrition, and also how much fun it can be to be involved in agriculture. It's a lot of work, but realize that there is a big gap to bridge in the school system to create awareness about what's locally grown. We believe that in general it's more nutritional, makes you smarter, tastes a lot better. And so we've literally partnered with several schools and the creation of promotional material to support their farm to school efforts and some educational things. You'll see on the left there is a poster that's laminated. It's one of the series of 4 that have been printed in 8.5 by 11 and 11 by 14 and laminated, and that's in cafeterias and other places in schools around our area. In the middle there, you have a description card. We've done a description card for most of the products that we deliver. Here is an apple. So the schools will take these laminated cards. That ambrosia there is about 4 by 5 inches and sits on a cafeteria line. And that way kids get to know what it is that they're eating, realize that it's been grown local, and can hopefully connect local farms to the fact that, hey, it's showing up on a cafeteria line, and let's give that a try. And we've done some very, very interesting things. We sell, I don't know, hundreds of watermelons and cantaloupe and tomatoes and heirloom tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and things like that. On the right is a little bio on our farm. Schools are more than interested in helping us communicate with students, and that is to really understand where things are being grown and how they're grown. And so we partner with schools quite extensively to try to help them promote what they're doing and educate students. On the right here, you see one school, compliments of a janitor who decided that he was going to have some fun with some construction paper. So he created an apple tree there, and those are description cards for all the apples. And so depending on the variety or varieties that they have that week, they'll take the description card there and actually put it on the cafeteria line. We've also partnered on the left there. You see a little giveaway bag that we've done with a couple of schools when they have their convocation and brings teachers back in August. And we'll be there typically right next to the food service department. And we create little bags full of some kind of a kit for them to take home with them. And we did salsa, for example, once, a couple of tomatoes, an onion, some jalapenos. We've done refrigerator pickles with an onion, with green peppers and a recipe card and things like that. So we try to make sure that they're able to socialize and communicate throughout the school, not just with students, but help them to communicate to parents as well as other teachers in terms of what they're doing to bring great tasting nutritional products to their students, because it's a lot of work. And then on the next slide, we support the Great Apple Crunch a lot. In fact, a resource that I do have is that I'd make available to anyone. It's a guide on how to make the Great Apple Crunch really work well. It's a 2-page document we put together with a few links to some incredible resources. But in some cases, we'll have somebody from the farm there. We'll provide apples. We'll provide some cross-communication opportunities. We give them the how-to sheet. And so we'll try to help them leverage the whole Great Apple Crunch promotion that's done very, very well and make that work in their school system. There's been situations where they brought all the kids together for an assembly and a principal's leading a big crunch. We've had TV coverage. We've had Alice in Dairyland come to an event. So it's a pretty big opportunity to do a high profile event. And we actually then are distributing apples through at least March and sometimes April to schools. So they're able to get great tasting, locally grown product. So that covers most of my introduction and orientation. Would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or maybe questions about how you can be supported in many of your efforts.
Thanks, Todd. So if you have questions for Todd, I'm hearing feedback. If you have questions for Todd, go ahead and enter them in the chat box and we'll get those asked. And I think what we're hearing is my voice through Todd's phone. So Todd, I'll ask you a question. What do you recommend for schools to reach out to farmers? What's the best way for a school to approach a farm?
That's a great question. There's a real serious business need that schools have in particular. You have non-negotiable deadlines every single day. And obviously you want to find great growers. You also want to find growers or aggregators that understand the business needs, which is you need to know what you're ordering. You need to get what you're ordering so expectations are met on a timely basis, cleaned, packed, sorted, graded, and be able to help you then with the invoicing and things like that. So I think that would be the thing, is you can certainly connect with farmers at farmers markets. You find that there's several associations. There's the Wisconsin Apple Growers, there's Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Growers. There's state associations that have a list of growers. You can find growers in your area. And I guess my recommendation would be just to vet whether or not they're prepared to support the business side of the oftentimes frenetic pace that schools experience. We kind of have a tagline for us, and that is we just don't screw anything up. You can get great product at competitive prices, but there's nothing worse than to have a farmer that is just not prepared to deliver a clean product that's graded properly on time. So those would be the things that I would recommend to take some of the pain out of trying to leverage a farm to school effort and the wave that's been created with that. Just make sure they're prepared to support the business side of your needs.
Great, thanks, Todd. Anybody have any last questions for Todd? Go ahead and put them in the chat box. Again, we will also have open question time at the end, and we're going to roll into an audience poll. So use your chat box to answer the question, what is one spark idea you are taking home from today's presenter? So hopefully there's one nugget that you want to implement at your school, at your farm, at your early care site that you grabbed out of today's photos, the stories that people shared. Just go ahead and enter it in your chat box as we roll into the next portion of our webinar today. I'm seeing the taste test of green beans and purple beans. Excellent, I love it. Any bean that changes color after you cook it is always exciting. So we'll let those spark ideas roll in as we move on to the next slide. And while we're moving to our next slide, a big, big, big thank you to Karen, Karen, and Todd. We know this is harvest season and lunch preparation hour, and that there's always things to do when you run an early care center. So thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. So just a little bit of overview about what this Farm to School Month thing is anyway, and why we celebrate it, just to give a little bit of a background to our conversation today. So there's 2 resources outlined on this slide, and you will have access to them when we send this to you later. So there's a great fact sheet about Farm to School, and Farm to School Month was created in 2010 as a national celebration of farm to school and a way to really highlight and promote what farm to school and farm to early care is, and have a national and state platform to do so. So it is a time when there's just a lot of energy and spotlight focused on farm to school, farm to early care, and local growers who are delivering or educating kids about where their food comes from. So it's a great time to either start a new farm to school or farm to ECE activity, and really to highlight and showcase your existing programs. And also it's a great time to develop new partnerships, and we can see how things like the Crunch really help those partnerships to develop. There are a ton of great resources to celebrate and promote Farm to School Month with. So as you can see, there is a logo and some branding and some styles that go along with Farm to School Month. So if you are doing some kind of campaign or effort or want to be highlighting Farm to School Month, there are logos that you can download. There are stickers and posters and coloring pages and bookmarks. So a whole suite of things to kind of help you promote that Farm to School Month is happening, and that it's part of something bigger. It's part of a national effort to celebrate Farm to School. So there's a lot of really great tools that are available on the National Farm to School Network website that are dedicated just to Farm to School Month. So having an easy to use logo and a fact sheet are always really good to just kind of help get the conversation started, help have some consistent messaging throughout the month. So we like to think of Farm to School Month as starting something new, celebrating what you're doing, sharing what you're doing, and growing your programs. And one of the main ways that we do that is through the Great Lakes Great Apple Crunch. There were over 250,000 crunchers in Wisconsin, and we hit about 1.45 million in the region. And you can see all the information about the Crunch on the Crunch website. And if you haven't had a chance to look through the Crunch Facebook page after your Crunch this year, there are amazing photos from across the region and a lot of great ones from within Wisconsin. And it's a great way to get inspired. And then that picture on that last slide, that was actually Todd with Allison Dairyland at an elementary school. And it's really talking about both the partnership and the promotion. So it's a great chance to have a reason to say, we're going to have a press event, we're going to do a party, a celebration about Farm to School Month and talk about it publicly. So I was so glad to see that picture, just love it. And so Farm to School Month is 31 days out of the year. It's just 1 month, but that doesn't mean it can't be a platform to keep our momentum going throughout the year. And the one thing that we really, really want to share and talk about and get you enthused about is using Farm to School Month and all the great photos that you take in the activities as a way to educate your elected officials about Farm to School and about Farm to Early Care and what it is and what you're doing. So one thing to do is to invite an elected official into your program during October. And elected official could be senators or Congress people, but it could also be your mayor, or it could be somebody on the PTA or somebody in your school board or administration. So it's really a great chance to invite people in to see what you're doing. And we do have a great tip sheet that you'll have the link to that's about engaging with legislators and really actually how to invite them into your school or center and as a special event. And you can also do that all year long. So maybe come to your Crunch, but also, you could send out a press release that, you shared in October and say, this is all the great stuff we did in October. Come eat lunch with us in November and see how great our program is. So really sharing with elected officials is a great way to keep the momentum going, and educating elected officials is different than advocating. So if you feel like, oh, I'm not allowed to talk to them, you're allowed to educate and show them what great work you're doing and how important it is to your students and children and community. Also, you can use Farm to School Month to take lots of pictures. Oftentimes it's hard to find really good pictures to promote your programs, but we all know pictures are worth a million words. So take as many pictures as you can during Farm to School Month, and then you'll have those as a database to share throughout the year when you're talking about Farm to School programs, school gardens, early care, farm to early care, and really use those photos as your own promotion. So you can put them on your school district website, your early care center website, your social media, newsletters, and also if you are sharing stories with media, you'll have great photos that you can send out with your press release to help add a visual perspective to your Farm to School Month stories. And of course, it's never too early to start planning for next year. What we're hoping to do is get you inspired and thinking creatively about all the great things you can do during Farm to School Month by sharing these 3 great stories and also directing you to the Crunch Facebook page and the National Farm to School Network Farm to School Month page. So it's always exciting to start thinking about what you want to do next year, and never has to be big or overwhelming, but just small steps to celebrating your Farm to School and Farm to ECE programs. And also, there's no reason that all of your good work and sharing has to stop on November 1st, right? Just because the calendar changes doesn't mean that you are, that you have to stop promoting and sharing the good work that you are doing. And then if you want to share in your chat box your favorite ways to keep the energy going for Farm to School Month, we would absolutely love to hear from you. There's a few other things in the chat box. So people are active and involved in Facebook online, that is great. We can all try and cross-promote each other's efforts in the state. That would be great. You can tag people, share what you're doing. Bobby likes the takeaway of having students learn from the cleaning tasks when growing from school gardens. So it's great to get kids engaged in food safety. I love the materials that Todd showed. What a great way to connect kids to growers. And Todd loves the idea of getting elected officials to see Farm to School Month events. And he also sends a reminder to invite the press. So that is great. And an idea for Farm to School Month is the 2-Bite Club with items recommended from a local farm. That sounds great. So it looks like we're ripe for some questions and discussion, and we'll just get through this one last administrative slide. So today, as you know, it's the first webinar in the Wisconsin Farm to School and Farm to ECE webinar series. So thanks for helping us kick this webinar series off. We're going to hold webinars quarterly in Wisconsin, and we would love for you to join us in the future. They will also be recorded and archived so everybody can access them. These webinars are supported through a USDA Farm to School grant that will keep them going for the next 1.5 years. And we do also want to make sure that everybody on the line is connected to Wisconsin Farm to School and Farm to ECE through the Farm to School newsletter. And you can see a little link there that you can use to subscribe to the newsletter if you're not already subscribed. The most recent one went out this morning. So if you didn't get it in your mailbox this morning, it means you're probably not subscribed yet. And it always has great pictures, funding opportunities, resources, upcoming webinars, conferences, and media pieces. And we love our webinar. And we love our newsletters, a great way to stay connected. So Beth, let's move us into the final slide for some Q&A. You'll see all of our presenters' contact information today. So if you want to get in touch with them about anything specific, you absolutely can. And then let's just go into some Q&A. So if you have some Q&A, you can type them into the chat box. And also Beth is going to turn it into the wild, wild west here and unmute everybody. And then you can ask questions over the phone if you want. And we'll start in with a couple of questions over the chat box. Karen does say, freezers, just because it's frozen doesn't mean it didn't come locally originally. And yes, Farm to School doesn't have to be fresh. Farm to School can be frozen product, minimally processed product, something maybe that comes to you and is ready to go right into your oven. We love all of those. Todd asked, what is the 2-Bite Club? Maybe we'll get to that in a second. Karen suggests that meats and cheeses can be Farm to School too. Yes, absolutely. So let's see, do folks have other questions that they want to ask our presenters?
So this is Beth, and I'm about to open the line. And as I do so, if you are on the phone, if you could mute your computers, that will keep us from having some of the echoing. But we will give it a try. And if our ears start burning, then we'll unmute and mute as we need to. So here we go.
Maybe let's start with the person who said, I love the 2 Bite Club. Can you tell us what the 2 Bite Club is? It looks like Wendy. Can you tell us what the 2 Bite Club is?
I do, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you,
I'm wondering
Wendy.
if our, oh, go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, we, twice a month at this point, we did, a local produce recommended, from a local farm. We did daikon radishes last week, and then we're doing romanescos, next week. And we take it, into the classroom. It only takes about 15 minutes per group at this point, which works out well because we in the chapter short breaks, bathroom breaks. So a staff member goes into the classroom to give a 15-minute break, but she has something to sample. So we encourage the kids to try 2 bites of everything before they make the decision. A lot of times it's ew or gross, so we try to get them to taste something with an open mind, and talk about what they taste, what like the radishes, for example, spicy was a lot what they were telling us they were tasting. So that's what it looks like. And then we take pictures, post it for parents to see, and a lot of times we have to teach the parents because sometimes it's things that even the parents are not haven't been exposed to.
Thanks, Wendy. And that was a little bit hard to hear, so we're learning that we have to work on some of the audio. Beth, is there any of that you can translate to the group?
Yeah, Wendy was telling us about the 2 Bite Club, that it sounds like the kids are getting that kind of first taste, the first experience of some new foods. And we can have Wendy send us some more information too, so we have the full picture of what they're doing at Davis Childcare in Oshkosh, where Wendy is.
Great. And it looks like there's a question that maybe Karen can answer. What meats and cheeses meet the price points for schools? Or I guess another way to phrase that is, how can schools incorporate more locally grown meats and cheeses? And Karen, I know you do a lot of this. Do you want to give it a shot?
Sure, that definitely is a work in progress. But what we started, we're very lucky in Plymouth to actually have 4 major cheese companies in town. So I worked a lot with Sartori Foods and Sargento to get prices on cheese, and considering it doesn't have to go anywhere but in our town, we were able to get a decent price on sliced cheeses from our companies right here in town. So that's, I guess, looking at your local area and what grows in your county. And if you are lucky enough to have a local butcher or a local cheese shop that is willing to work with you, you might be able to get the price to where it makes sense for your school to be able to use that. They've also been partners with us. They did support in town here, building our new greenhouse and things like that. So because they are supportive of the school, sometimes their cheeses might be a little bit more, but it's also specific to what we want. They're cut to the right ounce that we want, and we can get a lot more variety. So, you know, the little bit of cost difference, because you can get what you want, and I can pick it up any day of the week and get it to the ounces that I need to meet our requirements. That justified what we're paying a little bit more on some of them, but some of them actually were even the same price or less than we can get from our supplier. So that is just a lot of talking, calling, working with what is in your area. And if you don't have that in your area, of course makes it a little more difficult, but then you just need to go and see what else is growing. Wisconsin has a lot of agriculture, so you need to look at the agriculture that's really specific in your area. We actually do have quite a few local butchers around the area too that are USDA inspected and very busy and very open to selling us their meat as well. And you know, once again, it was building relationships and, you know, saying, well, what can you offer us? And this is what I can afford. You know, what do you have out there that we might be able to use? So just starting those conversations will help you kind of expand your menu, and then, you know, they may offer you something that you might not have ever thought about serving before. And, you know, that can be exciting for your district as well. For us, it was, we have a family, they're sheep farmers, and, you know, I said, we have some lambs that we need to sell, and we're running out of places to sell them. Would you ever serve lamb? And so we said, you know what, sure, we'll give it a try. Price was right, and, you know, now we have new things to offer on our menu. So keeping an open mind is really good to get those meats and cheeses and other things in there as well, knowing that you can maybe expand your menu on things that you hadn't ever thought of doing before.
That's great, Karen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see that there's a couple more questions for Karen, and let's see if there's questions for Todd or Karen before we hop back to questions for Karen, or any general questions that folks have. You can either jump in by voice or type something into the chat box.
As people are thinking, I wanted to point out that there is a link to registry credit or registry certificate for participation for those of you who that is beneficial. It looks like I'm able to access it from my screen. I'm not sure if that's true for you. So if you're not able to click and get the certificate, send me a quick chat box message, and I will make sure that I get you what you need.
Beth, can you just share the link in the comment or in the chat box?
I can do that. You'll have to forgive my clicking around, but I'm on it. Thanks, Vanessa.
Excellent. All right. Well, there is another question for Karen. Do you process many locally grown products, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, zucchini, eggplant? And I think the other question that goes to that is, how do you keep your farm to school program going in the winter time?
All right, that is good questions too. So at our school gardens here, this year they always do a lot of root vegetables, which we request. So they actually say, you know, what do you want to see grown? Which is nice, because then we can say, well, what can we handle and what can we store? So this year I requested cabbage and carrots and turnips and beets and potatoes and onions and things of that nature, because we all know those will store a long time through the winter. So we were able to get a lot of cabbage again this year. We got, I think, about 50 pounds of potatoes. Carrots we buy from our local farms in the area, and they actually, there's one of them who has quite a bit of storage on his farm, so he does hold them for us and brings them when we need them. So we can get carrots through about January, February. Zucchini and eggplant we've done a little bit with. The kids are still working on how to get that to grow best for ripening season. So we did have a few this year, but the wet growing season here at the end kind of spoiled some of that product. So we didn't get a lot of it this year. Broccoli they have tried in the past, and that once again too, the students are in control of that crop, and it actually got a couple years ago eaten by a fox who got into the garden, so we did not end up with a lot of broccoli. But we have in the past gotten that from some local farms and did trim and freeze a lot of, we just flash steamed it and then froze a lot of it to use later on in the winter. We got, I think, 200 pounds once to use throughout the winter then with the broccoli.
Karen, that is great and amazing, and thank you. And I want to kind of share the same question to Karen from your ECE perspective. You use your gardens throughout the summer. How do you incorporate local foods or gardens or local food education during the frozen months here?
We don't very well. We don't have storage capabilities at the center, so we don't really have an ability to freeze anything to be able to use it. We go into the fall a little bit with the squashes, you know, acorn squash, butternut squash. and we use those into the fall, but really throughout the winter, it's just more buying from Costco is our big place. I know there are ways to be able to do a little bit more with some farms. We just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Excellent, thanks. And it's like a step-by-step kind of thing, and we're always just glad to know that people are doing excellent things right now. And Farm to School and Farm to ECE really is about doing what works best for you. And Todd, let's give you the last word here. We know it's busy harvest season now, but winter is approaching. Can you give folks some advice about the best time of year to approach farmers about wanting to start a farm to school relationship?
Yeah, you know, planning is really very, very important. If schools and growers and anybody in between wait till August, it's too late. So this year was the first year after really 3 years of efforts. I think it was a result of building quality relationships and trust, and also that, hey, you know, there's some really exciting things that we can do together. We start meetings in May. May and June is when we meet with all of our customers. We sit down and we talk about what would you like to do? What are your goals? How can we support it? What are your needs going to be? And then that gives us time to find the product, gives them time to plan menus and plan events and things like that. So getting started early is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Thanks, Todd. And for folks who are working directly with vegetable growers, you might even want to get in touch as early as December or January, which feels like it's just around the corner. Well, we are at the hour today. A huge, huge thank you to Karen, Todd, and Karen for being online with us today to share your stories. We absolutely love peer-to-peer sharing here, and we love getting to see what you are doing on the ground. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who joined this first webinar today. We'll send notes out along with resources and links, as well as the recording information when it's done. Beth Hannah, thank you for being our technical wizard behind the curtain today. And we'll just send you out with one last question as we end our webinar today. But if you send us in the chat box future Farm to School webinar topics that you would love to see, and we'll see if we can put those in the queue. Otherwise, thanks for spending this hour with us this morning. Thanks to our presenters, and we look forward to connecting with you around Wisconsin Farm to School and Farm to ECE in the future. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the webinar today.